So what is MTG Arena's Jumpstart Historic Horizons? That's what we're going to talk about here today, and I'm here to talk about it. At the same time, though, if you guys want to get the actual good information, go Google it, find these articles. I'll try to link as many of them down below as I can. There's a few different ones here. The accuracy is going to be much better if you go to the source. I'm just going to give you guys my reaction and my thoughts about it, of course, because that's what we do. Just make sure that you know that's what it comes from. All right, so on August 12th, MTG Arena Jumpstart Historic Horizons adds hundreds of cards, literally hundreds, like 800 something cards to Arena. I think only 400 or so are actual new cards, and 31 new to Magic cards completely in this digital release. So only digital, not physical cards, 31 new cards to Magic that are only coming to MTG Arena, specifically into the historic format with Historic Horizons. So what is Jumpstart? First and foremost, we've seen Jumpstart before in these kind of weird deck lists where they have a few different creatures, sorceries, one of everything, resculpts, witching well. In a pack, you would get something like this. So you would get, all of these different cards along with a new card, depending on the percentage chance of getting the different cards in the pack. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, but you would end up getting some of these newer cards in there as well, and all these reprints. And if you're on, this is for MTG Arena specifically now. Before they did Jumpstart in physical, and it was something that you could use. That's where a lot of different cards came from. I don't want to dive too far into that, but Jumpstart is an interesting format where it's kind of like a draft, but you get two packs, you put them together, whatever those packs are, you can mix into a cool deck, and you add the lands to it, and boom, bam, you have a really cool way to play. And I actually really enjoyed playing that format. I actually really liked the idea of being able to have this kind of way to get cards on everything except Arena. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. I liked it actually for physical to an extent, except they didn't print enough, whatever. But overall, I think that this is actually a pretty fun format. I think it's a pretty fun idea, and it creates really cool and fun ways to play. So why is this crazy? Why is the world going crazy with this right now? All the Magic area is really up in arms about a lot of things here because of the different mechanics we have. And I'm trying to think of the different mechanics. First off, previews are coming out right now. There's lots of different previews coming out over the next few days. There's lots of new cards. We'll talk about that maybe in another video. I don't want to be a spoiler video. I've decided I'm not really into spoilers necessarily. You can find them. I will talk about things that are the most interesting and the things that will be the most fun. And so let's go ahead and talk about perpetually. So perpetually is a keyword that is in this now, and I'm trying to find all the different keywords. Here they are. Yeah. So three different mechanics that are in this that are things that you wouldn't be able to do in physical Magic. That is the reason why everyone is up in arms, because these three mechanics are very Hearthstone like. And talking about Hearthstone, I know a lot of people play Magic because they don't like Hearthstone, or they've played it because it's been around for forever, but that doesn't mean that every single thing about Hearthstone is bad. That's kind of my opinion, at least, is that I think that there's actually good things about Hearthstone, and some of those things can be implemented to Magic. I think the best thing about Magic itself is the land system, and that's something Hearthstone will never really have. But does this actually ruin the game by having these mechanics? So Seek. Powerful tools can grab a random card from your deck that matches specific criteria. And so it grabs a thing at random. And so that's something, and it grabs something from your deck at random if you use a Seek mechanic. Let's find an actual card for that. So let's talk about that with Manor Guardian. So when it dies, each player seeks a non-land card with mana value 2 or less. And so at random, you would seek through your deck a card with mana value 2 or less. If you were to do that in physical Magic, you would have to go through, find everything that was 2 or less that was a non-land card, put them down, shuffle them, have someone choose them at random. That one goes into your hand, put everything back, shuffle the entire deck, do all that. It's way too many steps, and they've never been able to do something like that. Where with digital, you can do that immediately. It's just done. You just have it, and that's one of the cool things. The computer does it for you. That's great, and you can do that. Hearthstone has been doing something similar to that for a long time, and I actually think it's a fun mechanic, but at the same time, though, it's kind of annoying with everything else. This is the one that actually I'm not sure I like yet. Perpetually. Permanent change the characteristics of a card no matter where it goes afterwards. So even if it changes zone. So if it goes to the graveyard, goes to exile, whatever, if it comes back, it will perpetually have this change onto it. So whatever that change is, taking advantage of MTG's ability to alter cards no matter. So this is where MTG Arena is the only place you can really do that, where that would be really difficult to remember which card it was specifically if it was in constructed format, especially if it's shuffled back into the library at some point. It can actually keep track of which individual card it was that had that instance, where you wouldn't be able to do that with physical Magic. So something like Davriel Soulbroker, which we'll talk about more maybe later. Or let's go play after you're familiar. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature card in your hand. It perpetually gains Death Touch. So this has the ability to actually affect things in your hand, which I am actually a fan of if you are only doing it with yourself. I don't actually like causing other people's hands to be affected. That was one of my least favorite things about Hearthstone, was the fact that someone could control the situation to enough that even the one thing I'm given can be altered and changed and be ruined, or all of a sudden, like, even the chance of having this be a good card is suddenly gone. I don't like that kind of feel. And so I'm hoping that nothing goes to an extent where they can affect my hand too much, or affect that I can't actually control the situation at all. That's the level of control I do not like. But things like Davriel Soulbroker, also the -3 ability, target creature perpetually gets -3, -3. So if you hit a Lurrus with this, or anything like that, Lurrus gets this, it's -3, -3. It will forever be dead if it ever comes back to the battlefield, unless it had a bunch of buffs or whatever. But if you brought it back from the graveyard, it would still have -3, -3. So no matter what, it's always that Lurrus, that specific one, will always have -3, -3. To an extent, I like that. I do like the idea of things carrying over past turns. I think that I would actually prefer that over it going into different zones. I think that was one of the best things about Magic, is that it didn't change zones. Like if it went to a different zone, it was everything, all the effects were gone. I feel like this, I like the idea of having that be an aura type of effect that lasts for a long time, but doesn't have the ability of being destroyed by enchantment removal, because I feel like that's one of the downsides of auras, is that's only ever in enchantments or artifact type of things, and there are enchantment artifact destruction things that which can get you in that moment, which I like the idea of a perpetual thing being onto a creature, but it would have to require that effect to actually happen. But I also love, that's one of the main things about Magic that's different from Hearthstone, is that everything resets at the beginning of the next, at the end of turn or whatever, for the most part. And that's where everyone's getting up in arms about this, and this perpetual type of things. And then also with Conjure, which has also been seen in Hearthstone a lot. Conjure creates cards out of thin air. You normally wouldn't be able to say, oh, I happen to have this random card in my hand or whatever. It doesn't work the same way, especially if they know what kind of card it is. Like this, you conjure something without revealing what it is necessarily. So Conjure creates cards out of thin air as digital object that acts just like a normal card would. Powerful spells and artifacts can conjure up iconic, powerful, and just plain useful cards, from Tropical Island to Stormfoot Pegasus and Ponder. So Tropical Island is coming to the format, but so far only as a conjured ability. And so we don't actually get Tropical Island, I don't think, but they're making a digital version of it. That'd be really cool if they actually made that for digital Magic, because that way it wouldn't ruin all of the things people are worried about with the economy. It would just be digital. I'd be fine with that. Anyway, so let's go ahead and talk about Tomb of the Infinite, because this actually dives into that. So 3 mana, pay 1, tap it, conjure a random card from its Infinite Spellbook into your hand. It perpetually gains, you may spend mana of any mana of any color to cast this spell. So these are the options that you're getting from it. 10 really powerful cards with the Tome of Infinite. This is the ones that are part of this. And this is where it gets a little bit different, is they're also saying this is part of its Infinite Spellbook, and that spellbook is not written anywhere on the card. It's just, you have to know that these are the cards that are part of it. It's things that you can hover over and find out and learn. I'm guessing that's kind of why they can make this work, but it just ends up being a lot of extra text, and so it's going to be really difficult. You have the chance of finding Light of Hope, Swords to Plowshares, Force Spike, be able to counter cards, Ponder, Dark Ritual, Duress, Salt Strobe, Lightning Bolt, Fog, and Giant Growth. And there's a lot of really, really great cards within that. I think every color has kind of like a meh card and then a really good card. So there's Swords of Plowshares, Ponder, Dark Ritual, Lightning Bolt, and Fog are all pretty decent cards in those colors, where the other ones are all you know, they're okay. They can do good stuff, but they might be duds. And so the whole idea is that you can activate this, but you might get a dud, but you also might get one of the best extra cards to your hand every single turn for 1 blue mana, you know. And so really, really cool stuff. I like that they're all 1-drops. I like the idea of this actually quite a lot, but there's just a lot that goes into it. Sorry, I know I'm really jumbled with all of this information right now because I don't know how else to talk about it because there's so much flipping information right now, and it's kind of insane. So in the card breakdown, as far as what a pack will be, the percentage chance that you'll have extra certain cards within this. So in this pack that you open up, some things are always going to be there, some things are not, and so you can kind of see a potential hand from this version of it, the animated version. But there's also like animated 1, animated 2, the ones where they're going to have different percentage chances of having other things within it. And so some of these cards, like Tomb of the Infinite, is only 33% chance of being within your pack. Sailor Means being, you know, only 25%, which is nice. So sometimes you don't like certain cards, but anyway, I'm not going to dive too far into actual how Jumpstart packs work. That's something I don't care about as much. All right, so diving into how it's actually going to work with MTG Arena and how this all works. So it's only going to be in Historic, all of these cards, and there are a lot of cards. So this is actually only the new cards right here. But we can see, if I don't hide the reprints, we're getting ninjas, we're getting affinity stuff, we're getting Esper Sentinel, we're getting Nettlesis, a bunch of different cards that I think are actually really awesome and excited to see that are going to be cool cards. Ranger, Captain of Eos. Lots of cool cards are coming within this as well. We're going to be getting a bunch, 782 cards that are part of the Jumpstart release. 372 that are new to MTG Arena cards. From within those, 13 mythic rares, 56 rares, 123 commons, 180 commons, and luckily most of the new to Magic stuff, the 13 rares and 56 of these 85 rares, are all new to Magic cards, which is really cool. That means that there are some rares that are going to be there from stuff we've already had on MTG Arena, but this might be a new way to be able to get those rares, so you can, if you do run into them, great. At the same time, though, it's going to make it harder to find some of these other ones if you're looking for those. And so everything else is basically commons and commons, which usually wild cards are easier to get. I've actually noticed it's harder to get common wild cards lately, though, so some people do have issues with that here and there, but typically you don't need to craft those as often. So overall, that's kind of the breakdown here. 31 new to Magic in general cards, 372 new to MTG Arena cards, and that's kind of what we got here. The basic lands, I'm trying to go through everything here. So let's actually dive into some of the other cards that we have now, and some of the different examples of effects that we get. So the new Sarkhan, because I know this one hasn't actually been talked about too much by other people. 4 mana, 4 loyalty, the +1 ability, dragon cards in your hand, so only the ones that are actually in your hand at that time. Those dragon cards in your hand perpetually get this spell, costs 1 less to cast. So if you do this multiple times, you can have any card that's still in your hand from the previous time before, can have that effect twice. They can stack. And the other effect here is, and you may pay X rather than paying the spell's mana cost, where X is its mana value. So it costs 1 less, but X is equal to the mana value. The mana value stays the same, even though it costs 1 less, but it'll be the mana value cost and then the 1 less. Doesn't make sense to me either. And this is where I'm having frustration, is I don't like the way that they're wording a lot of these cards. A lot of them is they're not giving any flavor text because they know that it's just on a digital format. You can hover over it and find the information there, but like, give that to us in this time frame. I want that. You can conjure a Shivan Dragon card to your hand. So that's a Shivan Dragon card. We know what Shivan Dragon does. It's normally, I think, a 6 mana dragon that you can pay 1 mana to get a buff here. We also have Scion of the Shiv, a 4 mana 3/3 that you can pay 3 mana to give it perpetual +1/+0, which means it always has that +1/+0, even if it dies and comes back to the battlefield in some way. This one will be a 4/3 then, or whatever, how big it gets. So if you have lots and lots of mana, which sometimes you do in dragon decks, this can actually be a really big threat, which is kind of cool for a common card. Whoa, oops, back. Oh, there we go. Sarkhan's Scorn, 3 mana instant, deals damage equal to the number of turns you have begun to target creature or planeswalker. This is one of the words I don't like the wording of this. Turns you have begun. I believe that means that the amount of times that I have begun a turn. So how many turns I have had. And so it's, even though it's not my end of turn yet, I haven't had the turn yet. It's just how many turns I've begun. So how many upkeeps I have had, how many untapped steps, that kind of thing. Like that is how many times I had. So I don't like the wording of this one at all, but it makes sense, I guess. but how many turns you have begun? So if it is, on your third turn that you have 3 mana now to play this, you played out your third land, and you can then deal 3 damage to number of turns to target creature or planeswalker. So, oh, man, I just don't like the wording of that at all. And there's just so many things like that are really frustrating with this new stuff. Enters battlefield, conjure a Stormfront Pegasus to your hand, which Stormfront Pegasus is this card. And so this is an actual card. I'm not sure if it's just a conjuration, if you can actually build a deck with this card as well, or if it's only a conjuration, but it's a 2 mana, 2/1 Pegasus with flying. So it's cool. We have more Pegasi. This isn't terrible stats. 2 mana, 2/1 is not terrible. And there's Pegasus out there that are nice. Pegasus synergies. Guys, I totally understand where everyone's coming from, why this is an awful like, it's just really funky. Like there's just so much information within all of this that doesn't make that much sense at all, that I'm trying to figure out, but that's what we got. So I don't know. I want to hear you guys' thoughts down below in the comments. I like, let me give you my full reaction, my full thoughts on this. Historic is the perfect format to try new things out. I think Historic is, if there ever were going to try stuff like this is the place to do it. I'm not sure that I like how they're trying it. Like this is typically my issue with Wizards, is that I'm like, yeah, you should be trying these kinds of things out. But why did you but you also try things out in some of the funkiest ways possible. It's like, I don't see how they're getting the full information out of something as well. Like typically if you're going to test something out, you test out one thing and get a reaction, try to figure that out, instead of trying out, just having really interesting wording on cards, having things be really funky. It feels half-assed and not thought through all the way. And that's really the feeling that I get from this so far. I like the idea of them adding tons of extra cards. That's really cool. I like that. Jumpstart at the same time, though, has been in the past one of the worst possible ways to be able to get cards, because the only way to get Jumpstart cards is to either spend wild cards on them or spend 200 gold or 400 gems to then open up 2 packs to then hopefully get one of these cards that you're searching for with it, and then play the game, which then you can get 2 mythic ICRs, which last time I just had extra gold and I am just spending money on it, and I kept entering in with gold and gems, and eventually I just had to buy other packs of other sets to then have the wild cards, then get the cards that I wanted to make good content for everything. And so if you're wanting actual specific cards for a deck, it's basically wild cards. And that is the thing that is the most annoying part of this, is that it's the worst system ever for getting cards. Simply because it's on Arena. I think that if you could just buy a box of Jumpstart, you wouldn't be in that same issue. Like you wouldn't have that problem if you just bought a box of Jumpstart. But they didn't have that last time. They had a bunch of issues with printing, whatever else. But with this one, you can't just buy a box. You can't just buy a bunch of packs of Historic. Maybe they're going to make a bunch of packs available. I'm not sure. Included in packets are... I haven't seen anything yet so far that says you can just buy packs. But you can get 2 packets and play best of 1 matches. You can, if you win 2 in a row, great. Then you get 2 extra rares or mythics, which is nice because that's usually the things you're wanting to spend wildcards on. So you do get rare and mythics ICRs from this, but it also, I don't think, has the same algorithm to make sure that you're getting new rares or mythics. It might be the same ones that you've already had, which then you run into the 5th copy issue, which this is the same reason. Like the reason why the 5th copy issue became a really big thing last time was because of Jumpstart when it came to Arena last time. And so I'm really interested to see what happens here. I'm really frustrated at the same time. We've gotten some information here, and I'm excited for the new cards that are coming in. I'm excited for that. I think that with Historic being the test it zone, even if things are banned immediately, a lot of the 32 new cards, like I personally think that Davriel doesn't sound very fun to me. Apparently we're not even going to get into the offers thing with the conditions with that. it gives a bunch of different conditions. Man, I don't even know how to talk about this, guys. This is such crazy stuff. Let's use this as an example of how much information is out there and how crazy it is. So accept one of Davriel's offers and accept its conditions. Let's go ahead and go to the source, because this will have a lot of the more information here, where this all came from initially. What those are. So when you are using Davriel's ability, the -2, accept one of his offers and accept one condition, you get, I believe, at random. I'm not sure if you get to choose this. I think it would be way too slow of a process if you had to choose it. And maybe it says it up here, but anyway, we'll go back to that later. But you get one of these, either draw 3 cards, conjure a guardian mana to your hand, which is one of the cards that was up above, return 2 random creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. They perpetually gain +1/+1, which is kind of cool. Like, a lot of just really cool effects, emblems that your spells you cast 1 black mana less. So if you get that effect, you suddenly have the ability to combo off with this like crazy in certain decks. But you also get a condition at the same time. Either you lose 6 life, exile cards from your hand. You could get an emblem that says creatures you control get, costs 1 black more to cast whenever you draw a card. Anyway, there's just all these different kinds of things. And let me see if there's something that says that this is random. This is where we're getting this information. This is where things are coming from, is all like this, I think, came out before this did, like before any of this information came out. There's so little information that makes sense to me that's out and available that it's a little bit frustrating and hard to figure out what's going on. And I have a hard time actually diving through and reading every single thing. With dyslexia, I tend to read things incorrectly or whatever. I like to actually hear that. That's why I usually watch Magic videos. And that's why I also don't typically do these kinds of spoiler videos all the time. But I wanted to give you guys my reaction, let you know what's going on, because just like I typically go to people for information, I wanted to make sure I at least gave some information, even if it's not the bestest or the most accurate. That's why I started from the very beginning, that this is going to be my reaction to stuff and not the most accurate information ever. And my reaction is, what the heck is going on? This is kind of crazy. I'm excited. I am excited. I feel like a lot of people are just angry, and for me, I'm actually quite excited. I like Historic because of how often it changes. I like being able to play in that format. I do feel like the power level is still high enough that it's hard to really dive into it with brand new janky decks all the time, but there's enough variance in the format because of how many cards and things are in it that you still have lots of fun decks that you can run into, and you occasionally run into Neoform perfect deck and occasionally run into some janky mess that makes you really excited and fun. It's really fun to play Magic. Historic is made for that. And all of these new cards coming to Historic, I think, is really fun. I think that there's some really cards that are really exciting. I think that Esper Sentinel is fantastic card to be coming into Historic. I think the power level is perfect, where it is super, super powerful, but it's also, just gives card draw. It's a really good card, but I think that it can go into a lot of different kinds of decks. And so the power level is good, but it's not something that will be so overly broken, or hopefully not. We'll see. But if it is, it can get banned really quickly in Historic because it's a digital format. It's only ever digital. Historic is the format that Standard is still played in physical forms. Historic is always designed only to be played in digital. And so I like it. I'm excited for that. I'm excited that Historic is becoming that, and it makes me more excited to play Historic. That's my favorite format. And so I want to play more, but I'm also hesitant about this. I'm hesitant about us having to spend only wild cards to get these cards again, which is really, really annoying. And I know for the whales, it's not that big of a deal. But for new players, that's going to be really difficult, where you might have lots of gold and gems. You might be able to play these things and get a bunch of cards. And this might be a really good entry point for you to get into, these 782 cards. You might get these cards that are needed to be able to actually play in the Historic format if you're someone that doesn't have a bunch of wild cards, everything like that. But it also might have the same issue of whales will get to those quicker. Whales will actually be able to have the ability to get a play set of those cards because they're willing to spend 1 million gems on things. And I feel like it would be easier to actually just have packs. Like, you could just actually open packs to do it and go through it. I just think that the system would be better still if there was packs, and they just figured out the wildcard system a little bit better. I don't like the 20 gems or 40 gems, depending on if you get an extra copy of things. That's dumb. They need to fix things really badly. And so at the same time, though, I agree. There's lots of issues. There's lots of frustrations. There's lots of things about this that I'm really confused about. But I think that there is definitely room within that. Two things can be true at once with this. It can be really confusing. It can be really, I'm not sure if this will work out. but it can also be really, really cool. And I think that all three of those are happening at once. I think it actually is a really, really cool format. While I'm nervous about these, it creates a lot of variance to Magic, which can be really cool. I think the Seek mechanic is actually one I'm more excited for than Perpetually. That's the one I'm probably the most worried about. Conjure, I am okay with. I like the idea of them bringing more digital only type of things with this. I just really don't want them to change up a couple of things. I like the mana base. I don't want them to take away the mana base. Lands are awesome. Lands are the reason why Magic is the best game ever. And people tend to hate on them a lot because it's the most annoying and variant type of thing. But that's the reason why Magic is so fun, is because anything can happen in a Magic game because of lands. I think, yeah, lands are a big part of that. Everything resetting at the end of turn for the most part, except for the static effects and all that kind of stuff. We're getting more and more of those lately. I think that that's actually one of the core pieces of Magic's identity, is the ability to go back to basics at the end of each turn, or that everything kind of resets. And Perpetually, I think if you were looking at it just as an aura, as long as that creature stayed on the battlefield, or as long as this thing happened, it changes cards in hand as well, which is the issue. So you have to be able to let it change within zones. But I'm in between. I'm in between with that. I'm not sure what I think about it. I think it'd be kind of cool. Man, yeah, I don't even know. So I'm just like thinking off the top of my head there, but with Sarkhan stuff, the hands that are the cards that are in hand perpetually gain this ability where you can cast them for 1 or cast them for X. If you get them into the graveyard, then have a way to cast dragons from graveyard, they will perpetually have this ability. And if you get them to where they can cast for free, like a dragon that's like Dragon Egg that was 3 mana, or Nadar that is a 3 mana dragon, have this happen 3 times. And suddenly you can cast it from free over and over and over again. So any way to bounce it back to hand, any way to do that kind of stuff, anything you can do consistently, it will perpetually have this in no matter what form it is. So I feel like there's so many potential combo things where that's a hard thing to have happen. Get this on the battlefield, go off 3 times, have that happen then. At the same time, though, that specific card can then go off over and over and over again for 0 mana or whatever. It's just crazy. I'm not sure what I think about this. I like it. It's interesting. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know in the comments below. I want to at least bring to you guys the information in my own words and what I'm understanding. And I definitely know that I have things probably wrong with this. The event itself also is only going from August 12th to September 7th. So that means that we can only do this awful system of 2,000 gold, 400 gems for this much time, and then only between August 12th and September 2nd, or sorry, September 9th. And then after that, I'm not sure if they're going to give us the packets to be able to just buy packets themselves. If it's going to go back to how it was before, where they reintroduced the Jumpstart game again. I really hope they let us actually buy the packs. I'm not sure how they would do that though, because you would want to be able to buy certain types of packs with it. It's just going to be a wild card frenzy. Like they want to get all of our wild cards because we've been storing them up for however long, and a lot of people are able to actually get a lot of stuff without buying too many packs. So this is their power grab again to get tons of money and use wild cards. And it's really, really frustrating, but I'm also really excited for Jumpstart. So I don't know, guys, those are all my thoughts. I hope you guys enjoy it. Yeah, leave thoughts down below, like and subscribe, and bye-bye.